Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor of Madison365, with your daily update for Tuesday, September 7th. And since it is Tuesday and we didn't have a show on Monday because of the holiday, today is Metcalf's Tuesday. Metcalf's is your fourth generation, family owned and operated market with stores in Madison at Hilldale and behind Westtown Mall and in Wauwatosa at 68th and State. They work to support local farmers and products and have over 3,500 local products on their shelves. And because there's still a pandemic and because it's still just much easier to do it this way, you can order for pickup or delivery at shopmetcalfs.com anytime. And we appreciate Metcalfs and their support of the program and of Madison 365 and everything that we do. So COVID numbers first. It's I was a little surprised yesterday. First of all, that the state even reported numbers yesterday on the holiday, which was it was nice to see. But yesterday's numbers are actually higher than today's. So today is like a Monday, where things are lower because of the long weekend. Yesterday, Wisconsin reported 934 new cases. Today we're at 788. So I mean, that could be an indication that things are getting better. Um, I doubt that very much. I don't know what would cause things to get better suddenly. Um, so my suspicion is that that lower number today will mean a higher number tomorrow because it just reflects the fact that we had a holiday. There wasn't as much testing reported. There might have been a lot of testing done, but not as much testing reported because of the holiday. Our positive test rate as of the 6th, which is this is always a 24-hour delay, was 8.0, which is very high. Uh, Over the weekend, it was about 8.3. So it is actually down from the weekend. Um, Again, that reflects a relative lack of testing. There is a lot of testing happening. I mean, we're still processing, or we're still doing 20,000 tests a day, give or take. A lot of that is the daily surveillance testing of healthcare workers and other folks that are required to test every day, or at least every week or every few days, right? Most of that is not community drop in testing the way we had last year. So we still have less overall testing than we had last year, but not by a lot, not by as much as you'd think. So there should be enough testing happening to where that positive test rate should be much lower than 8, and it's not. So that continues to be a significant concern. Um, the other area of concern, the deaths are actually down a little bit. We're now averaging 7 deaths per day, which means we've recorded 49 in the past week. Only 1 confirmed yesterday, and 2 the day before that. So, but again, these are deaths that are not happening now. These are deaths that are being confirmed now, which is at least 3 or 4 weeks after these people passed away. Okay. So last year at this time, we didn't. We this is when we started to see the big surge in cases. Right. We're actually ahead of where we were last year by quite a bit. Our current daily average of cases is 1,583. That's actually down quite a bit, but I think that's down from like Friday. But I think that's because of the holiday weekend. I imagine that will jump up again pretty soon. But at this time last year, the daily average was 875. So we're almost double the daily average of cases from this time last year when things went really off the rails last year, remember? But we did not see the corresponding increase in deaths until mid to late October, right? Because first of all, it just takes a couple weeks for the disease to run its course. Although anecdotally, we're hearing that hospitalizations and deaths are coming faster with Delta. Delta basically, this is a harsh thing to say, but Delta kills you faster. Um, And on top of that, it takes 3 or 4 weeks for the death certificate to be confirmed and uploaded into the state data, right? So we won't see it if this current surge in cases leads to a surge in deaths. We won't know that till late October. We can cross our fingers that it won't, and we'll see. Dolores asks, are the numbers lower today because of more vaccinations? I doubt it. Simply because we're more vaccinations would lead to a long-term trend. Like eventually, the fact that we get enough vaccinations, once you get to 70% or so vaccinated, we'll start to see a long-term trend of downward trajectory. But we're not going to go from 2,000 to 700 in a couple of days because of vaccinations. We're going to go from 2,000 to 700 in a couple of days because of the lack of testing or lack of reporting on a holiday weekend. It's possible, we're now, speaking of vaccinations, let's just talk about that for a second. We are now 55.3% have had one shot in Wisconsin. 51.9% of us are completely vaccinated. That's not any higher. It's not significantly higher than it was Thursday, Friday last week. So that's not what's having the impact on today's numbers. Now, at what point, what's the percentage we need to get to where we do start to see that downward curve? I honestly don't know. I'm not sure anybody could tell you for sure. Maybe is it 60%, 65%, 70%? At what point does the vaccinated population significantly impact the spread? Don't know yet. It would be nice to find out. So let your friends know that we're curious how many vaccinations it's going to take, and the only way for us to know is for them to get vaccinated. One other concerning number is hospitalizations. So we know that it goes from increase in cases to increase in hospitalizations to increase in deaths. And those are about staggered. Based on last year, staggered by about 2 weeks each. So go from, we see a increase in cases, 2 weeks later we see an increase in hospitalizations, 2 weeks later we see an increase in deaths. That's what we saw last year. This year is different in 2 ways. Number one, half of the state is vaccinated. That wasn't the case last year. We had 0 vaccinations at this time last year. On the other side, schools were closed last year. Restaurants were closed. Gatherings were banned in some places. Right? So we've basically taken all those mitigation strategies, statewide mask mandate, restaurants and bars being closed, open for only takeout, non-essential retail being shut down. We've traded all those in for vaccines. And the vaccines are only halfway done. So, we'll see what kind of trade-off that is. Right now, our spread numbers, our case numbers, are about 6 weeks ahead of where they were last year. And unfortunately, our hospitalization numbers, there are people on Twitter trying to convince us that even though there's more cases right now, it's going to be fine because hospitalizations and deaths will not spike. And I'm not seeing any evidence for that at all. And the reason I say that is hospitalizations are significantly ahead of where they were last year as well. Our peak last year was mid-November, November 17th. We had 2,277 people hospitalized. On October 1st, we only had 669. Today, September 7th, we have 1,045. We're almost halfway to last year's peak hospitalization. Remember last year, we had a field hospital built in Milwaukee for overflow. It never got very full, right? We just missed that sort of crisis point by this much, right? I think the highest that the population, remember they built that field hospital that could hold up to 500 people, and we only ever needed it for about 20 at a time, which means we were very close to crisis situation and didn't quite get there. That's at the peak at 2,200, 2,277, almost 2,300 people. Today, we're over 1,000 for the first time this year. We're, getting toward halfway to where we were last year at the peak already. And we are, several hundred ahead of where we were last year. So I don't see, and on top of that, a third of those are in the ICU. 315 currently hospitalized in ICUs. Both of those numbers are, give or take a 10% increase from a week ago. So unless the medical community has come up with much better treatments, which they have in so many cases, we got the monoclonal antibodies now. They have different strategies, different mitigation strategies, different decisions on when to intubate people and stuff. They've learned a lot in the last year, right, about this disease and how to treat it. However, I'm not sure that that there'll be a lot that you can count on. More hospitalizations, but fewer deaths. Right? I'm just not optimistic about that. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be honest with you and tell you, that level of hospitalization is going to, anytime you get a lot of cases, some percentage are severe enough to be hospitalized, and some percentage of those don't make it out of the hospital. And it's been right around 1 to 1.5% of all confirmed cases end in death, and that hasn't changed significantly. Now, we won't know for sure until late October. Right? It is entirely possible that our unvaccinated population tends to be younger and therefore less vulnerable. Although, anecdotally, it sounds like Delta is hitting young people harder than the original COVID last year was. And also that some portion of this infection, that all of these cases that we're seeing every day, some portion of them are unvaccinated people, which are far less likely to be hospitalized or die. Right? There's virtually zero chance if you're a normally healthy person who got vaccinated, you have a normal immune response to the vaccine. Chances are, there's almost no way you could die from COVID. So if there's a surge in cases among vaccinated people, that's fine, honestly, because those folks aren't going to likely be hospitalized or die. That said, we're seeing a massive surge in hospitalizations, which there's no reason for me to believe that will not lead to a massive surge in deaths, and I'm just trying to be honest with you. So I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. Again, there are tiny little reasons for optimism that the people getting infected now, it could be vaccinated or could be younger, so that even if they are hospitalized, maybe they're less likely to die. I just don't know. We very well could, by November, December, January, be seeing 60 deaths a day again. I just want you to be prepared for that. All right. Any other questions? Drop them in the comments. We're going to take a short pause. Actually, we're not going to take a pause. I'm just going to tell you about another supporter of Madison365, a sponsor, the daily update today, as bleak as it is. Again, but let me go back. The numbers today are better, but they're not good. That's basically the bottom line. They're worse than they were a year ago, which scares me, to be honest with you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a sponsor, and then we're going to talk more about some local news that is actually happier. And I'll leave you for the evening in a much better mood than that. So the daily update today is brought to you by Forward Theater Company, presenting Mom, How Did You Meet the Beatles? By legendary American playwright Adrienne Kennedy and her son Adam P. Kennedy. This autobiographical experience is a personal account of Miss Kennedy, who was hired to write a stage version of John Lennon's new book in 1960s London. This is a story about holding artistic ground in the patriarchal world of show business, presented in the Playhouse at Overture Center September 9th through 26th. Tickets at forwardtheater.com. I'll tell you, our reporter Aomi Wolf is actually going to go see that on Friday. She's going to review it, and it has nothing to do with whether with them buying an ad on the show here. If it's good, she'll say that. If it's not good, she'll say that. And we're actually going to have the um, the cast, the two people in the cast who, incidentally, this play was written by a mother and son, and the cast of the play is a mother and son, and they're going to join the program. They're going to be on the show next week, Wednesday. So that would be fun. I want to go back to COVID for a second because Donna has an excellent point here. Um, this is absolutely 100% true, and I'm going to add to it that even with fewer deaths, long-term quality of life, we just don't know. Now, um, if somebody is unvaccinated, gets sick, gets hospitalized, but doesn't die, maybe would have died last year, but doesn't die this year, they could still have massive life-changing symptoms for months or years, right? We know that. Also, and here's the yes and, like, yes, you're 100% right. And being hospitalized can be financially devastating because we don't have universal healthcare in this country. So losing time at work, potentially losing a job, and then getting a bill for six figures. Like just the fact that you didn't die of it is, that's good. That doesn't mean you're fine, right? And I think Donna made that point very well. So thank you for that, Donna. A couple other local stories for you today to talk about. There's an author named Lori M. Lee. She's out with a new book today called Pahua and the Soul Stealer, and I feel bad that I've never quite figured out exactly how to pronounce Pahua. It's a Hmong first name, but Lori Lee is Hmong American, grew up in Oshkosh, and writes young adult fantasy fiction. This is her seventh novel, and is just dropped today, published by Rick Riordan Publishing. And she has an event tonight. If you're in Appleton or near there, you can stop by Barnes & Noble tonight with a mask on, preferably. 6 p.m. She'll have a reading and a signing there at Barnes & Noble. Her heroine of the story is a kid like herself who grew up Hmong in a mostly white city and has some fantasy adventures. I don't want to spoil it for you. If you go to the website, Madison365.org, there's a little synopsis of the book. Our Malik Anderson actually spoke with Lori Lee. Has a nice story on the website today. So go look at that and stop by there today and buy the book. Enjoy it. It's a story about a Hmong person in a white city, and it leans on Hmong shamanism, which is fascinating and wonderful. So give that a try. Also today, we have a profile of Jerry Bradford on the occasion of his 20th anniversary cutting hair at JP Hair Designs. If you're around Madison, you know JP's as kind of a cultural hub for the Black community, especially on the west side of Madison. And it's been there since about 94. It feels like one of those places that doesn't even have a beginning. It's just like always been there. But Jerry's been there now 20 years, and he talked with Dave Dahmer, our editor, about his time there, about how he started there, about how he kind of had to come up and audition to be a barber in the shop. And that's a very nice profile of him on the website this morning. Oops, sorry. Also today, we have a preview of the Capitol Land Music Festival. This is put on by Clyde Gaines, who also does the Fall Gospel Fest here in Madison. Let me get my graphic out of the way here for you so you can see that whole thing. DJ Ace will be providing some music, as well as Vivian Green, Rodney Poe, you might remember as a member of Blackstreet. Kevin Ross. This is a soul music, R&B music festival. These are the kind of music that you don't normally see in Madison. This is actually taking place this weekend, September 11th, in Stone Prairie. So the details on that and how to get tickets are at the website right now, Madison365.org. One last thing I'll mention, the FAM is our new membership program. If you want to support what we do, go to the website, Madison365.org/thefam. I'm going to put the link in the comments for you. It's very important to us that our community be informed, right, about the COVID stuff, so you know what we're up against, you know when it's going well, you know when it's not going well, as well as all that other information. You will not see a preview of that book, Pahua and the Soul Stealer. You'll not see a profile of a black barber. You will not see a preview of the Capital Music Festival in any of the news outlets, right? And because those communities of color don't get the attention of the mainstream media, it's just not ethically or morally right to us to charge you money for it, right? We're going to make that available for everyone, not just those who can afford it. However, every one of those stories I talked about, somebody got paid to write that because they are professional journalists, and we respect them as professionals, and we pay them, right? And I'm paying for the internet access to come to you right now. Right? There's very little overhead, really. We don't have an office that we pay for. Our office is the whole community, right? So basically, any money we bring in goes right back into the work. So any donation you make does the same. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so any donation you make is tax deductible. If you go to the website, 365.org/thefam, Madison365.org/thefam, $5 a month, $10, $25, $50 a month, you become a member. You get a few perks, but most importantly, you help us keep going. You support us. You help us fulfill this mission of informing the community, of bringing those stories into the mainstream, all the stories you wouldn't ever see if we didn't bring them to you. Right? You can be a part of that. So appreciate your support. It is a beautiful evening out. The storms rolled through this morning. Got a little wild. I saw lots of pictures of very large hail this morning around the Madison area. But it's beautiful right now. So get out, take a walk, enjoy yourself. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
This is 365 Media.